Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. This is going to be a battle report of a Warriors of the Dark Gods versus Empire of Sun style game. The practice for the ETC has started, and I am now currently looking at Warriors of the Dark Gods. So this is the list that I will be playing. I wanted to try out the Exalted Heralds. I think it's a good combination with the Behemoth, because then the Behemoth can draw away the opposing range damage, basically. And I did consider putting in a Helmor just to be able to teleport the Heralds, but I wanted to also test it without a Helmor. Pride Warriors, because I think they're really good in the sense that they can tank a lot of stuff and are quite reliable. Sloth Warrior Knights, because I want to try them mostly. That's basically the list. Now my opponent's list is a list that I actually, we made it like 3 years ago or something. I took it to the ETC once and I was quite successful with it. My opponent took it to the ETC. He was also quite okay with it. It's a list that you have to learn to play a little bit, but once you master it, it plays away quite nicely. It's mostly about just the Knightly Order brick that nobody can really touch. And then the Knights of the Sun Griffin, which are quite a good chassis when you get to understand what they do and how they work. And the game itself, to be honest, I don't really know anymore what kind of deployment we played. Could have been counter thrust, but I don't think so. I don't know. It was one of the linear ones basically. So one side on one side and the other on the other. And then we have King of the Hill, so I could take the lake on the right, I believe, as the objective, where I didn't want my opponent to go. My opponent took the ruins all the way on the top left, and then we both did a deployment basically where we completely abandoned, or well, we didn't completely abandon it. But King of the Hill, if you spread out the deployments quite a lot, then you get this situation where you're either going to be able to take the objective of your opponent, or you're not going to be able to take it, but then your opponent will also not be able to take yours. So then it's a very drawish objective. So deployment-wise, or what you see on the table right now, I skipped the deployment picture this round. So for my opponent, he has a unit of heavy infantry, units of Knight of the Sun Griffin with discipline, and unit of knightly orders, unit of Knights of the Sun Griffin with flaming standard, a big block of knights with all the characters, the Arcane Engine, the heavy infantry, and another unit of chicken knights. For me, left to right, Sloth, warrior knights, warrior chariot, 2 exalted heralds together in this picture. They're facing to the right. Warrior knights, pride block, warrior knights, wasteland behemoth, ratchet one, and the warrior knights. And then the pride guys are just here, the 11-man squad. I was hoping that they could still do something against the Sun Griffins to make me possibly still score the objective. But as I was putting this down, I was like, yeah, it's not gonna happen, is it? Because these Knights of the Sun Griffin 4 wide against the Warrior Knights, they will quite still do some damage. I will do some damage back, but in the end, he will grind me out. And then the Pride Warriors, I think he'll just grind me out, and that's gonna be it. So my thoughts in this game, generally, I do have ranged magic damage. My opponent doesn't. And well, Breath of Corruption is really nasty for my opponent. I did take Mark for Doom and Grave Calls on one of the heralds, so I could do some damage over the turns. So I don't really want to engage very quickly. I just want to be a nuisance and deny my opponent engagements. And then the Exalted Heralds, if they're together, then they can probably tackle a unit of Knights of the Sun Griffin quite decently, because he only hits me on a 5+, which is quite an advantage. I think 1500 points for combat power is a bit much if you only have 12 attacks in the end. But it's also, the matchup. This is just a lot of combat power coming from Empire of Sun style. So this is what I did. I wanted to just focus mostly on the left, make my opponent come quite far, just to delay him. I don't know if it worked out. So this was after my opponent's turn 1 and my turn 1, and then we have my opponent's turn 2 and my turn 2, I believe. So I do clean up the heavy infantry that he put on the left side because he made a Congo line to block me. He is setting up for charges with the Knights of the Sun Griffin. Afterwards, I tried to go around with my Exalted Herald. This one is the one that is the caster, this one has Stubborn. And then, yeah, this is a long charge for my opponent, but it's doable. I was thinking if he charges in, he gets an overrun into the Pride block. That is kind of fine with me because I have 2 counter charges of Warrior Chariots and I have the Wasteland Beam of which can get a Breath of Corruption. If he makes this charge, then I think it's going to be game over for the Knights of the Knightly Orders, but I'm not very sure about that. Here on the right, we do dish it out, and basically it happens what I expected. He just grinds down my Warrior Knights. My turn, I could have locked him up with my Wretched One. I decided to go for the Heavy Infantry instead. I was like, well, Heavy Infantry, with a little bit of luck, I might be able to just grind them out a bit. And then that is actually just 1 unit less that I have to worry about instead of stalling him for 1 turn, basically. Don't know what the better play would have been. Maybe just to put the Wretched One somewhere where he can't really be touched that easily. It's mostly like a nuisance and a chaff piece at some point, but yeah, maybe this was not. I don't know if it was the best play or not. Then afterwards, he does make a charge. I don't know how the Knights got in this position. I think he might not have charged and just moved up. Yeah, I think that was it. So he did charge my Stubborn Exalted, my Exalted Sticks. And then in my turn before, as you can see here, I put my Warrior Knights behind the Exalted because I was thinking, well, he's not going to charge here because, well, I will grind him out. So then in my turn, I can charge away and I can charge also with the Warrior Knights. And then if I do it in this way, then he can only contact 1 Warrior Knight with his Knights of the Sun Griffin if he charges the Warrior Knights. So then it's actually quite a good engagement for me because he will be standing over here. I will have a flank charge and 2 flanks. So in this way he cannot charge the Warrior Knights, which is a valid point. But then again, if he does charge my Exalted Herald, then I am kind of stuck with my Warrior Knights and I have to spend a turn to come over. So this was probably not the best play, but yeah, this is what I did. I don't know if I could have. I might have been able to reform actually there, but it was my opponent's turn anyway. So we played a very casual game. So I probably could have taken more attention there and just did stuff a little bit more convenient. So my opponent did move up with the Knights. I have to provide an answer over there. We're still grinding it out on the right. So my answer is to move up the Warriors with the Banner of the Relentless. This is one of the cases where I think that the Relentless banner is really, really good. So I can just go in front of my opponent's Knights. I should have put them in a place where I do chaff them so that I'm at this position. But my opponent doesn't get full contact with his unit. That might be better if you just want to stay steadfast and stick around. The Warrior Knights, they can go over to the flank. The Warrior Chariot provides some counter charge opportunities to beam off as well. And then here we continue grinding against the chickens with Warrior Chariot support, and the Exalted Herald comes over to go out of line of sight again. Then my opponent, he goes in with 2 units, so I was expecting him to go in with the Knights, so I didn't see that he could just go in with the Knights of the Sun Griffin as well, or at least I didn't realize. That was a bit of a mistake, because in this case I don't manage to hold over there, and my opponent does get an overrun with the Knights of the Sun Griffin, because I just don't stay steadfast anymore. He does at least 9 wounds. I think he did a bit more even. I think he did 10 wounds. Which means I'm not steadfast, which means I'm not going to stick around. So he does get the overrun into the warrior chariot. We do that combat immediately. He destroys the warrior chariot, overruns into my herald. And my herald is just sticking around there, but well, yeah, if that's all, then it's not really good. My other Exalted Herald tried to charge here. I'm discovering that having Swift Stride is really useful on an Exalted Herald because a 7 on 2 dice is too risky. The Warrior Knights, they are gonna charge in at this point. I don't know why they're still like this in this picture, but they did charge in. I don't do anything to this block, I just reorganize to be able to charge next turn. And this guy, I did charge the heavy infantry. I was still hoping that I could maybe get him off the objective with my Wasteland Behemoth by charging some stuff, making it flee. Maybe if it fled off the board, it would be a panic test and stuff like that. And then maybe a tower check on these guys to get them off the table. Could all happen in theory. Spoiler alert, didn't happen. So this was a bit of a waste of putting them over there. Breath of Corruption turned out to be quite useful in being able to diminish the knight unit a couple of times. What I didn't mention is that at this turn, like turn 2, I have a marker here. This is a Rod of God that I placed. I did manage to cast Rod of God. Amazing. So I was thinking like, okay, this is close to the objective. That's cool because then my opponent's units all take some damage. The knights can take some damage, maybe even the card, and then it can have quite an impact on the game. It came down first magic phase that my opponent could roll for it, and I rolled a 4 on the range, which meant that the only thing that I hit was my own wretched one, and it died. So that was just funny. So we were at this picture. Afterwards, my opponent reorganizes. So this is after the Breath of Corruption that did another 5 wounds. To stand like this, the Exalted Herald is still dishing it out against the chickens. Damsel went out of the unit, and yeah, basically I'm presented by a choice of do I charge in or do I not charge in. So in the list that I'm currently playing, I also don't have any musicians on the Warrior Knights, which does definitely cripple the Knights a little bit. I think I want musicians, but maybe it's also matchup dependent. But I decide that we just are having a fun game, and I just want to see what happens if I do charge in, whilst I'm actually aware that it might not be a good idea. So I do charge in. My opponent's Knight of Light of Sun style does 4 hits on Warrior Knights, which means that 4 of the Knights die. I do 1 wound with my impact hits, then he strikes with his unit and prelate and stuff, leaving 1 Knight for me that doesn't even do a wound. So I lose combat terribly, and basically everything's gonna go down to the Light of Sun style. My other Exalted Herald, he also dies eventually. I decide not to go in with the Warrior Knights, just to score the objective, and then basically this is more or less the end of the game. My opponent still has some moves. Yeah, basically this is the end. So the Warrior Knights and the Warrior Chariot, they still die. The Exalted Herald survives. So in the end, what I have is 1 unit of chickens, half a unit of cavalry, because there's still 1 guy remaining. I have the Damsel. I have a unit of heavy infantry, and that's kind of it. My opponent has 2 units of Warrior Knights, 2 chariots, 1 Exalted Herald, and the Wretched one, and the Bright Warriors. So yeah, in the end he does score quite a bit higher than me, but on the objective we do have a draw, and I did still score some points. So in the end it's a 6 for the Warriors of the Dark Gods and a 14 for the Empire of Sunstyle. Now some list review from my side. So yeah, I'm not sure about the Exalted Heralds. I was looking like this list in general. For a Warriors list, it has a bit limited damage output, I think. Like the Warriors with Pride, I just want to test them more times. Because with the right magic support, I think they can really shine. Mostly also if you have Alchemy, Word of Iron that you can cast to get them to a 1 bomber save. That would be nice. And then I want basically a second Banner of the Relentless on the other unit because I found it quite valuable. I'm gonna swap this out entirely. So I was thinking I don't really have a very big combat unit, which is something that is quite useful to warriors, so I will put in like a big unit of Feldrax, I think. I prefer Feldrax over Chosen Knights because they don't have the weakness to alchemy. And like in a matchup like Infernal Dwarfs, having Feldrax makes a difference whilst having Chosen Knights doesn't. Is my opinion at least. So then I would have the Feldrax, then I will play the warriors without. This unit will lose the mark because then I can play the Chosen Lord with Greed, with Burning Portent, with Demonic Wings. And then I still have the points left over for a Wizard Master on Alchemy and a Wizard Apprentice, I think, on Evocation to help out with Ancestral Aid, all the Warrior Knights, and the Feldrax, and then, yeah, even with the Roller Battle to make hitting easier. I think it's going to be a different list. Double Exalted Herald plays away quite nicely. Like this situation that we had here. I have to find pictures. So the situation in this corner of the battlefield was basically dominated by the 2 Exalted Heralds, and these 2 units didn't do anything. So it's also still me learning to play with this army in this sense. Like Double Exalted Herald is sufficient to fully shut down a flank, I feel. Because you can pair them up, you can let them go loose, you have all your magic also there. So, but the magic is also, it's mediocre. Like you have 2 wizard adepts whilst you're paying quite a lot of points for them. You do have Rod of God, which is definitely a game changer in some matchups. I still have to discover. I'm not fully on the know for the Exalted Heralds, but currently I haven't really drawn out the utility out of them that I would want to, if that makes sense. So yeah, that is the current state of my Warriors development, and yeah, well, you'll just quickly see new reviews and new battle reports. They will appear in due order. Yeah, with that, I would like to thank you for watching, and I will see you the next time.